Welcome back to Smart Life. Today we're talking about the lazy versus the productive. And are we creating a generation of takers, or are today's kids going to be the next greatest generation? I still believe it could happen. And one of the reasons I believe it could happen is because Bradlee Dean speaks to students around the country, and he is here to tell us what he has found. My good friend Bradlee, nice to have you, first of all, in Southern California. Glad to have you on set with us.
Yes.
And this is a big treat for me. And you are out there in the schools talking to these kids, and they are getting a completely, I just want to say, demented version of what life is all about in the media, and you're trying to bring them a different message. Talk to us about what you're hearing from those students.
Well, once we begin to educate our kids rather than allow them to be indoctrinated through the federal government actually violating Article 10 of the Bill of Rights, we begin to lay a foundation. If they don't know where they came from, how do they know where they're going? And what we need to do is go back and teach them real history, teach them the facts, expose the media, teach them to shut down the TV, and actually show them the price paid for their freedoms, because once you begin to show them the price paid for their freedom, they want to stand up and they want to fight. And that's really where things are at today.
I love that. But, you know, I thought that that was supposed to happen in history class. It's not happening.
No, as a matter of fact, I've heard principal, one in particular in Wisconsin, tell me that the history books and the science books are being changed every 3 to 6 years. So there we're at. I mean, we got International Baccalaureate, we got No Child Left Behind. Now we got something called Common Core. But the good news is we're at the pivot right now. This is the beginning to deal with the issues, and we can do this. We can come together.
So you still have hope, and that encourages me, because I know how much time you spend in these schools. Your reception from the kids, from everything I've read, is almost straight across the board. They love you. I've seen some of your work. I've seen you. I don't. The word perform isn't right, but you really are a stage presence and a talent that is somewhat of a performance, because you do go in and engage them in such creative ways that you know, just normal speakers don't. I don't know how else to put that. And so I've seen that, and I've seen how you reach out to them and how you really grab them out of the audience and get their attention. But your reception from some of the school administrators has been quite different. Tell us.
Yeah, well, if we're going to pay attention to the squeaky wheel, we can do that. It's usually one or two in a particular school. Without fail, I mean, listen to what the students say, not what I say. Listen to what the administrators say. When I'm doing high school assemblies, Gina, I'm looking at the teachers nodding in agreement with what I'm saying. And you're going to get the one or two in every particular situation that are going to try to make a big ado out of what you're telling them. But the bottom line is I'm not asking for permission to obey God first and foremost and the laws of our constitutional republic to educate our kids in public schools. If someone's got an issue with the facts are stubborn things. And what's stubborn here is me, because I'm not moving. And when we deal with administrators that want to go ahead and kick up against the goads, per se, the truth, well, they're the ones that are going to have to answer for what they're doing, not me.
And playing a devil's advocate with you, which is always
Absolutely.
fun, because I know I'll lose, and I love that part. And that is, what about the separation of church and state? What are you doing going in there saying a word like God? I thought that had been taken care of.
Well, if we were in Russia, you'd be exactly right. Article 52 of the USSR Constitution talks about lines between church and state. But when you look at the ACLU, those that promulgate the lie of lines between church and state, nowhere can you find it in any founding document, not in the Bill of Rights, not in the Declaration of Independence first and foremost, or in the Constitution of the United States of America. Case in point with Thomas Jefferson, when you look at him, not only was he the President of the United States, but he was also the president of public schools in Washington, D.C. district. And the two books that were suggested by President Thomas Jefferson were the Bible and Watts hymnals.
In schools.
In schools.
In schools.
That's right. And when we bring that into the public schools, you can't deny the fact that the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence is on the walls. And when you begin to hear the lines between church and state, you have to stand up and confront it. And when you confront it, you'll find that you win the battle every single time. We need to quit capitulating in the face of what's going on in public schools.
What's the most rewarding part of what you do? Because you really are, you're battling on the front lines of what I would call a spiritual war.
Yeah.
And I think we all that engage in the public narrative, I think we all engage to some degree, but you're really just stepping right up there and putting yourself out there every day. What is it that you think is the most important part of what you have to say? And what is it that you think most people misunderstand about your perspective?
Well, I don't know that there's a whole lot of misunderstanding coming from the younger generation. They get me.
Really?
And the reason they get me is because I get them. I came from the same background that in which I'm dealing with on a daily basis when I do public schools. So there's no misunderstanding there. It's usually the older generation and the younger generation where there's such a huge breach. And what I like to do is bring the connection between the older and the younger. But everybody's got to be open to hear that. And the only thing that's going to bring us together is not opinion, but the truth. And so again, what we have to do is we have to go back and just, as George Washington, the first president of the United States, when he had quoted, he said, smart guy he was, he said, religion and morality are the essential pillars of civil society. So what we have to do is go back and know who we are and, again, where we came from, and that's what's going to unite us. Because, folks, we're all in this together.
Yeah, there are a lot of sob stories, though. You know, we need more people on social welfare because there's all of this hurt and all of these horrible things that the rich have inflicted on us, and that the religious rich, I guess, if that's a new term maybe, have inflicted on us. But you yourself, I've read your comic books, which aren't altogether funny in certain parts, and I read them to my children. They're amazing, by the way. I love them. And they tell about your past, which is, frankly, heartbreaking. I don't know how else to put it. I've seldom read a story so sad as your personal story. How does that inform and connect you to your audience today?
Because I'm going by testimony. I'm going through experience. I'm not going there giving them a bunch of head knowledge of things that I don't understand. And really what it comes down to is we need to understand God speaks to the heart, not the head. I'm bringing what my particular position as a preacher and as a Christian is the fact that we're written epistles for all men to read. They're seeing my life by a demonstration of the Spirit of God, not by what I can put inside of their heads. But we have to give them a knowledge. And I think what's so cool about what we're doing here is, again, I understand the generation that I'm going to. And I think that's so important because, again, what's going to bear witness is not what I say or what I do. And you had asked the question earlier, Gina, as to what's the response of the students. It's overwhelming. And the most rewarding thing is the fact that I can leave them with my heart in their school every time I leave, and they know it. And you have to fight for what you love, and it's really not hard to fight for what you do love. And I love this generation enough to fight for them. And the students respond to that. They see that. And I think one of the most rewarding things that I see out there is when I hear the kids come up to me and say, you know, I was going to kill myself. I hear this all the time. I'm not doing that. 10 years later, getting letters, it's because of you, it's because of you, it's because of you. It's not because of me.
How many people get that in their daily work?
Oh, it's
not
pretty
many.
awesome.
That is
when it
pretty
does happen,
awesome. Well, I have one more question I want to get to with you. I myself have been criticized for, you know, certain things that I'll wear, a certain way that I do my clothes, or the fact that I said, yes, I do have a small tattoo, and that's a big deal. You are plastered with tattoos.
That's right.
You do not look like a preacher in my book, and teasing you. And I know that there are people out there who are saying, but wait, you're a father, you're a mentor to all of these thousands of children around the country, tens of thousands of children around the country. Why do you have this persona rather than cut the hair, you know, have the perfect shave, get rid of the tattoos? I'm just asking you. I'm playing devil's advocate with you because I enjoy what you do, and I think it helps you relate to the kids, but I want to hear from you.
Even doing tea parties. Yesterday I was introduced as similar to what you were outlining. And it's interesting that every time I do a tea party or a high school assembly, almost without fail, I get a standing ovation. It's because this generation gets me. They understand. To the older generation, listen, Elvis is dead.
What don't they get, though? Why can't we, as people who all agree on the issues, why can't we tolerate each other looking a little different?
I don't know. But look at John the Baptist. I mean, that rocker dude back in the day walking around with camel's hair and a leather girdle, eating locust and honey. That was the prophet of the Most High God. And God likes to choose the foolish things to confound that which is wise. And if that's what the Lord wants to do here, go right ahead and do it, because no flesh should glory in his presence. I think it's awesome. You know, and if you really look at the legislators today in this country, you better look at the musicians. Socrates said, let me write the music of a nation. I care not for who writes its laws, for I will control its people. So I think people need to really open their eyes up and see who the real legislators are, because when you look at the music world, I'll tell you what, they're the ones writing the laws by what they're singing and what they're playing.
That is very profound and something that I have never articulated quite that well.
So the long hair and the tattoos don't mean I'm stupid, right?
I would never say anything of the sort. Tell folks where they can find you and all of your great products that you put out there.
If you'd like to see what we do in high school assemblies across the country, you can go to youcanruninternational.com. Got a brand new comic book done by Danny Bulanati. Marvel comic artist, great stuff.
Great
Second to
stuff.
none.
My boys love it.
Amen.
I'm telling you, every day they are in that.
Cool. I
Yeah.
love this plug, Gina. This is great. And the other thing, too, what we have is we have a documentary of all the stuff that has transpired in public schools. And when you look at that, if you have your kids in public schools, I can promise you, once you watch this 7-hour documentary done by James Gillette, who did some stuff with Steven Spielberg, second to none, you're going to pull your kid from the public school. And if you really love your kids, get them out of the indoctrination cesspools that are, out there today.
Bradlee Dean, thank you so
yeah.
much for being with us. We always enjoy Bradlee Dean, and we're going to have more from you coming up next. Your calls and letters are the next segment. The number, you know it, 888-650-8176, or you can go to the Smart Life page at moneybizlife.com. Click on Ask Dr. Gina. Send us your emails, because poor Jason, he looks so lonely. I've had all this company in studio. Jason has nothing. Please call him and let him know what your questions are. We're talking about confronting takers and turning them into makers here today on Smart Life. I'm Dr. Gina. Stay with us.